The following program is sponsored by Friends of Life Outreach International.
And my dad lifts his head up off that stretcher and looks at those paramedics and says, "Do you all know who that is out there? That's my son."
That's Michael
W. Smith.
Next, Michael W. Smith reflects on the profound impact of a father's love.
And then I had an epiphany. It was just my knees buckled, Sheila. I'll never forget it. It was sort of one of those moment in time moments. And I felt like God spoke to me and said, "That's how I feel about you."
Hi, welcome to Life Today. I'm Sheila Walsh, and I'm glad you're with me, and you'll be glad that you were here too. When I say the name Michael W. Smith, what comes to mind? Obviously, phenomenal success as a Christian artist, Grammys, Doves, you name it. But his recent offering is something that really touched me deeply. It's a book called The Way of the Father, Lessons from My Dad, Truths About God. So, Michael, welcome to Life Today.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Even if it's on Zoom, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. When I read through your book, the one thing at the end that I was left was, I wish I'd known your dad. I mean, the stories that you tell and the kind of character he was at your events and at your concerts. I mean, right from the beginning, he was your number one fan.
He was. I say this all the time. He was the kindest man I'd ever known who happened to be my dad. Oh. And his glass was always half full. He just, he came from that great generation that if you were sick, you went to work, you know, and he loved my mom so well. And he loved me and my sister so well, and his community and the homeless shelter. And I mean, he was a deacon in the church, and he smiled and laughed every single day. And I don't ever remember him hollering at me. And I know he had his faults, but I just didn't see very many of them. And so we had a great life together. I miss him. He crossed over to the other side in November of 15. And I knew at one point I would write a book about him. And 2020 was a good time to write a book.
Absolutely.
So it was the right timing. So I'm really happy with it.
One of my favorite stories has to do with when you were with your baseball team. And the way that your dad kind of modeled what success really is. Tell us that story. It's just delightful.
Yeah, you know, I think the great thing is he didn't base any of the stuff on our performance. I mean, he obviously wanted us to win. Everybody likes to win, you know.
Sure.
But that year, I remember that year we were just awful. We just weren't very good, and we had 16 games and we were 0-15. And in this little town, and we have one game left to play, but in this little town, you know, there's a Dairy Queen, and the Dairy Queen's only a block away from Mitch Stadium, which is where we played Little League baseball, and only the winners got to go to Dairy Queen. And so, you know, after the first game, second game, we got beat 30-0 the first game.
Oh,
and,
ouch.
You know, our heads are hung in shame, or like you think the world to come to an end. And my dad will walk in that dugout and says, "Boys, we'll get him next time. Let's go to Dairy Queen." We went to Dairy Queen, and we always walk in there, and all those people look at us like, "What are you guys doing in here? We just annihilated you." And then we won that last game. I'll never forget it. I was on second base, and I was the scoring run, and we won 3-2. And, you know, he thought we'd won the World Series, and he walked in the dugout and said, "Boys, great job. Let's go to Dairy Queen." We went to Dairy Queen 16 times in a row. So, but I think it's so cool because he was always affirming. You know, that was the magical part of my dad his whole life. He just affirmed people, and he affirmed us as if we weren't very good, going, "Hey, we're going to get him next time." So it's just kind of painting me a beautiful picture of who God is, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting because your dad and your mom both experienced heartache. And I just see the legacy that was passed on to you, that you've passed on to your children, that you've passed on to your grandchildren. What did watching the way that your mom and dad dealt with the hard things in life teach you?
That you can get through anything.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I think I talk about it in the book about my mom.
Yeah.
You know, she was 8 years old and her 3 younger siblings, and they were a block from the house. And my grandmother would just go off. I heard stories, obviously after the fact, but she told him to get out of the car. You're walking home. And she drove off and she never came back, ever. And I can't remember if I mentioned this I don't think I did, but a crazy story about my mom. I got to meet my real grandmother one time.
Wow.
And my mom only saw her one other time too. And we both were there together when my Aunt Pat died of cancer. And I was 20 years old and I was not happy.
Oh, no.
I kind of wanted to give her a piece of my mind, but I sort of bit my tongue. But I watched my mom love on her mom. Wow. And my mom had forgiven her a long time ago, And I just remember that moment going, you know what? My mom's extraordinary. You can either be a victim or you can, forgiveness is a beautiful thing, when you're not bitter. And again, I'm not going to pretend to know everybody's story. There's some horrific stories out there, but the people that I know that I'm close to who've had those kind of upbringings that were not good, they just found a way to let God father or mother them. Yeah. And they're extraordinary people. So there's a way to get through the storm.
Yeah. I think there had to have been a lot of laughter in your house growing up. But then there's a later story that just shows that who your dad was as deep as the marrow in his bones. An ambulance comes. It looks like he's not going to survive. Tell us what happened that day.
We thought he was out of here. I mean, he was white as a ghost. He was, thank God I wasn't on the other side of the world touring. My mom had called me and said he's fallen. And long story short, we get there and it's awful. It was just awful. And so basically they put him on a stretcher and they took him. And there's 5 emergency vehicles outside of my mom and dad's house in Fullstone Farms in Franklin. And so they put him in this big vehicle. There's 5 people working on him. In the meantime, all these people come out loving on my mom. It was a beautiful thing. But I'm watching these guys work on my dad. And then not even 7-8 minutes later, something like that, the color comes back into his skin. And, he was always for me. He had all these sayings. And one of those sayings was hold the phone or what in the wide world of sports is going on, But when he said hold the phone, always all growing up, that means he had something to say. But whatever. The long story made really short. I saw the color come back into his skin. I thought he's going to be okay. So I turn around and literally just go greet all my mom's neighbors. And I don't get 5 steps away. And I hear my dad go, hold the phone. And he had to say it 4 times. Hold the phone. Shouting, and I run back over there going, what is going on? And every paramedic is like, everybody's frozen. Nobody's moving. And my dad lifts his head up off that stretcher and looks at those paramedics and says, do you all know who that is out there? That's my son.
That's Michael W.
Smith. And I'm sitting there going, oh, Dad, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me again. He did that my whole life, just going, hey, this is my son. He'd always brag on me. And then it was really crazy that 10 seconds I was laughing. And then I had an epiphany. It was just my knees buckled, Sheila. I'll never forget it. It was sort of one of those moment in time moments. And I felt like God spoke to me and said, that's how I feel about you, and it just took my breath away. I have a couple of those a year, where you just kind of get annihilated. It's just a reminder of God really not only loves you, but he actually really likes you and is extremely fond of you. So it was kind of one of those wow moments. But my dad, it was classic dad. So
I just love that. But the thing I love about the way that about your moment, that sacred space that you had there, was that speaks to everybody, because not everybody had a dad or a mom who would say, look, this is my child. But everybody, the fact that that's how God feels about all of us speaks to every one of our viewers. That's powerful.
It does, and it's true.
Yeah.
So
there's so many stories about your dad, which is why I'm going to tell you all how you can get hold of this book. You need to read this book for yourself. It's brilliant. But you tell the story of being at the Grammys, and, you have to call your dad to tell him that you didn't win. And
right.
I just love what he said.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. I said I saw very little faults in my dad. The only time he would get upset was when I wouldn't win, like an award show or something like that. Yeah. He just couldn't figure it out. But I called him from the Grammys and I just said, hey, Dad, I just want you to know I didn't win. I'm okay with it. And actually one of my friends won. And I want to make sure you're good. And it was just dead silence on the phone. And I'm thinking, oh my word. I said, Dad, talk to me. And my dad said, what do you mean? Like, what are those people smoking? Like, what do you mean you didn't win the Grammy? I mean, he just could not believe it. And so, classic dad again. So,
a serious part of your journey with your dad, and you share about in the book, is I remember watching the movie Remembering Marshall, and I didn't know at that point your very profound connection that you and your dad were actually there that night. What are your memories of that?
Well, for a 13-year-old, I mean, to go out there and see fire all over the place, you know, there's been a crash. I mean, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm in a movie. You know, we didn't really know what had happened. My dad had just got the call that there's been a crash, and that airport's actually in my hometown. It's actually out on a hill called the Tri-State Airport. It's literally like 7 minutes from my house, and so my dad got the call, and then he says that there's been a crash, and I said, I'm going with you. So I just hopped in the car with him. So it was raining, and it was just I'd never seen that many emergency vehicles in my life, you know, and we eventually had to pull off on the side of the road, and we actually just got out and we walked probably a good 100 yards in the rain and got to a place to be able to look over to the left, and that's where we saw the fire just everywhere. And you know, you're just sort of in shock a little bit, you know, you don't really know what happened. And then we got back in the car and we just sat there, and then we recognized one of the firemen from the Canova Fire Department come up, and my dad rolled down the window and said, was that the football team? And he said, I think so. So, and the first time I saw my dad well up with tears in his eyes, you know, and we kind of, I can't really explain it, Sheila. It was just kind of one of those moments where we kind of knew what we felt, and we didn't know what to say, but it was kind of like this father-son moment. Mm-hmm. This is going to be like, we knew this is going to be hard. Our town is going to die. Mm-hmm. This is almost too much to take, you know. And then obviously, you know, you find out late that night it was Marshall University football team. That was November 1970. And, you know, the movie really is not so much about the crash. It's about, you know, they weren't going to build the football team back, you know, and it's all about that team coming back and rebuilding, you know. That's the beautiful part of the story. So, but every time I go back to Canova, I go back and visit friends. I have an aunt who still lives there. I go back and do stuff at my church from time to time. I always, every time, go to the crash site. It's just it's so sort of, I don't know, it's not holy ground, but there's something about going back to that spot that just I don't know what it is. I just have to do it every time. I mean, I did when I went back it was the 50th anniversary. Yeah,
of the weren't you invited to go and take part in a service there?
Yeah, I did. I went and sang, and it was tough. Yeah.
But I think what you do when you go back there, I think that's your way of honoring those people. Of honoring that their lives mattered, that they were there. Yeah,
and we'll never forget.
No,
we'll just never forget. And so it's amazing how many we didn't have as many people show up this time because of the COVID thing. Sure. But supposedly, like every year, there's like thousands and thousands of people that flood this hole where the fountain is. And I mean, I'm not talking about 3,000. I'm talking about 20, 30,000 people show up. And so every year they turn that fountain off for that, whatever, 5 minutes or whatever, to remember those who perished that day.
So many people know and love you for your music. They love you for the worship leader that you are. I mean, you have a way of ushering us into the presence of the Lord in such a powerful way. Tell people who don't know, if any of our viewers don't know about Rocketown, tell us about that and why that was important to you and what you were able to do there.
Well, I got the vision for Rocketown in 1991. It's a youth facility. It's a place for kids to go. But whatever, it was 1991. I heard about all these kids that were cruising in Franklin and they were getting in trouble. And I just thought, well, gosh, I used to be one of those kids. I'm just going to go down and observe. Maybe I can learn something. And I remember standing on the corner, and I seriously heard these words in my head going, build it and they'll come. I kept thinking, that's Field of Dreams. That's Kevin Costner. Just build it and they'll come. And I kind of felt like that was God. I go, well, what do you mean build it and they'll come? Build it and they'll come. And then the vision just started to manifest itself inside my head and heart, and had this dream to build this youth facility, and did all this research, said it would never work. I called on my friends, and President Bush Sr. was my campaign chairman, and Steve Case, a great friend of mine, helped us, and we built this big facility in downtown Nashville. And it's really going really well. I mean, we've learned a lot. We were with kids, a lot of time when you're trying to share with them, this greatest story of all time, this, the Father heart of God for mankind, you have to earn the right sometimes to speak in these kids' life. They've been hurt. Yeah. They've been lied to, so they want to, as St. Francis says, preach always if necessary, use words, so we just love on them. So you earn the right. And then all of a sudden, all these kids are coming to Christ almost on a daily basis. Wow. So it's really great. There's a skate park, and there's a music venue, and there's a dance studio and a music studio. We have after school programs. Awesome. We have a food program because we found out kids hadn't eaten in 3 or 4 days. Wow. So, and the typical kid, mom's a prostitute, dad's in jail.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing that you're doing that. I just wondered, what would you say to those watching us? Some of the people that watch us are prisoners. We get, people from all different walks of life. What would you say to those who didn't have a father like you, who think, well, that I'm so happy for you, but that was not my experience?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to pretend to know your pain, and because everybody's got a story. I just know that God can father you, and I believe there's a way out, and I believe that if you'll let him do that, you're going to be able to help a lot of people who had the same experience that you did. I think God is bigger than any sort of adversity or any sort of crazy life that we've had. He's bigger than all that. If you just look through the book, the Bible, you just look at all these crazy things that happen to people, but I believe if you'll just really commit yourself to the Lord and let him fight these battles for you, you'll find freedom, and it'll change your life, and you'll see life in a totally different way, and it's beautiful.
You had a very special relationship with George W. I know that somebody who works with him really closely said to me, "Oh gosh, yes, he just loves Michael W. Smith." Where did that friendship come about?
Well, I really got to know George Herbert Walker Bush first. That was my first relationship, really close to Mom and Dad. Mm-hmm. I was at an NBC Christmas special, 1989. I always wanted to do Christmas from Washington. Yeah. It was a beautiful, beautiful TV special on NBC. And I got invited, and there they are on the front row. We met them before the deal, and I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I'm singing for the President of the United States. And then later, after the show, we had a Secret Service guy and the president of NBC come up and says, the president and Mrs. Bush are requesting your presence at the White House. And so I said, okay. Ooh. So Debbie got in this car, ran every red light, pulled right up in front of the White House.
That's the way to go.
And I look at Debbie going, what's going on here? And so we go in, and Mrs. Bush is telling stories, and Bush Sr. had just gotten back from being on that ship with Gorbachev. Oh, wow. And so he's standing there with me, the president of NBC, and telling us about his talks with Gorbachev. I'm going, I cannot believe this is happening. And then I end up leading Christmas carols in the East Room on that ancient Steinway grand piano. And then he started writing me letters, Sheila. Just crazy. Hey, come and see me when you're in D.C. Like, you don't have anything else to do, And I must have gone in. I can't even tell you how many times I went to hang out with him at Kenny Bunkport in their home. And then I met W at Kenny Bunkport. Yeah, that's the first time I met him. And in a fierce tennis match, and me and my partner beat him and his dad. And I thought, I'll never be invited back here.
You're a brave man.
So, I was a brave man. I should have just given the game away, but I didn't know how fiercely competitive the Bushes were. But that's how I met W. And then I obviously spent a lot of time with W in the White House as well.
Yeah. Well, this book, The Way of the Father, Lessons from My Dad, Truths About God, is a fantastic book. And I want to tell you how you can get hold of your own copy of this book. But first of all, You know that here at Life we're very committed to providing clean water in parts of the world where there is no clean water. So I want to ask you to watch this, and then when I come back, I'll let you know how to get hold of this fabulous book. Watch this. You know, I've just visited the graveside of a 9-month-old baby boy, and I'm standing right beside his killer. It was water from this exact well that this darling boy is now getting his water from. It's a hand-dug well. It's not very deep, and the water is filthy. Mosquitoes lay their eggs in there. Children get malaria, they get diarrhea. This little one, this 9-month-old boy, died with diarrhea. The mom took him to the clinic to see if he could get some medicine. They gave him medicine, but by that point he was so sick he couldn't even take the medicine. He vomited it up again and died in her arms. I mean, it's unthinkable. I would never, ever let a child of mine drink this, but they've no choice. The need is urgent. I've never felt such a sense of despair. I visited 4 children's graves, and I've been here 3 days. And I've asked mothers, you know, what do you do when you lose a child? And every single one of them has said, we are just simply praying. We pray to God that he will send help. Well, here we are. We are the help. You and I are the help. So please help us change the world. This is their normal. They need a new normal, where for the first time in their lives, they drink clean, fresh, life-giving water. You know, those kind of trips mark you for life. They change you, because there's something that, it's like everything inside of you screams, this is wrong. And the thing that kind of blows me away, we get used to watching things on television. We watch movies, we watch all sorts of things that are not reality. But this is literally 2-3 plane rides, and we're right there. This is just a few hours after we leave Dallas Airport, and suddenly you're there in this place with mothers that are just like you and just like me, and all they want is for their children to be healthy. They just want their children to be healthy and to be happy, but to have no choice. And at first, it was hard for me to grasp that concept till I got there, you know, and we drive for hours over these dusty, bumpy roads to get to a village. And then when we ask, you know, can we see your water source? And we'll walk with mothers like the one that you just saw. And you'll see these children put these kind of dirty containers down into this well and pull up water that I wouldn't give to my dog. And that's all they have to give to their children. But you know, the other thing that marked me on that trip in particular, the fact that they are still praying women. They're not women who have given up. They're not women who think there can't be a God because this is so terrible. They're still believing and praying that God will send help. And that's why you and I are here. We are his hands and feet. This is happening right now, wherever you're watching, whether you're just finishing dinner or just having breakfast or whatever you're doing, this is happening right now. These children are walking to these hand-dug wells because it's all they have. And so our commitment this year at Life Today is to drill 350 wells in over 20 nations. That might seem like a big task, but when you break it down, it's very, very doable. If you were able to give $48, that will give clean water for 10 children for their life. If you're able to do $144, that will provide clean water for 30. And if you would be able, perhaps with some of your family members, or perhaps you received some money you weren't expecting, wouldn't it be amazing to put it to use that would last a lifetime? For $4,800, you could drill a whole well in a village that will provide clean water for a lifetime for 1,000 people. And when you do, please request Michael's book, The Way of the Father. It's such a beautiful book about the impact a father can have on the life of his children. See, that's why we're here at Life Today. It's because of the love of the Father that he has had on us that we want to reach out to his children, every one of these little ones, made in the image of God. Let's help them. Please go to your phone and give the very best gift you can. Please call. Please call now.
Waterborne illness is a killer that strikes the most vulnerable. For many impoverished families, the death of a child is the tragic result of having no choice but to drink contaminated water. But with your help, they won't have to make this choice ever again. Mission Water for Life provides clean, fresh drinking water for thousands of children and their families, giving them a life free from the fear of death. With your gift today, you can help drill and establish 350 water wells this year. Your gift of $24 will help provide clean water for 5 children. A gift of $48 will help provide for 10. $72 will provide for 15. And $144 will help provide life-giving water for 30 people for a lifetime. With your gift, we'll send you James Robinson's book, Living Amazed. Full of inspirational true stories, you'll learn how divine encounters can change your life. In addition, you'll also receive Randy Robinson's brand new devotional, Upgrade, 7 Moves in 7 Weeks to a Better Life. With your gift of $100 or more, please request the NIV Thin Line Bible with easy-to-read large print. Finally, please consider a gift of $1,200 to help provide water for 250 people, or a gift of $4,800 to help sponsor a complete well, and you may request our inspiring bronze sculpture, Divine Servant. Please call, write, or make your gift online.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. And for any gift at all, please say, I would like my own copy of Michael's book, The Way of the Father. Thank you for this beautiful, transparent, funny, heartwarming book, Michael. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheila. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, and good to be with all of you. And we will see you next time. So from all of us here at Life Today, God bless you and be near to you. We'll see you next time.
Regardless of your net worth, estate planning benefits you and your family before and after death and results in peace of mind. As a free service to our friends and partners, Life Planning Services, a ministry of Life Outreach International, can help with your estate planning needs and chart your financial future. Don't put off this important step to peace of mind through better planning. Contact Life Planning Services today.
And I remember laying there saying, God, I don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen this way.
Former Miss America Debbie Turner Bell has courageous faith. Life Today is made possible by the supporters of Life Outreach International. Your gift will be used exclusively for the exempt purposes of life. The ministry features specific outreaches as examples of the programs it supports and conducts. Gifts are considered to be without restriction as to use unless explicitly stipulated by the donor. The ministry is a member of the ECFA.